All right, now we're going to make our butternut squash soup. I'm very excited about this recipe because it's one of my favorite, if not my favorite recipe that we have on our website. So basically, what I have in front of me is what we're going to use to make our gluten-free butternut squash soup. It's got great advantages to it to serve to your patients because not only is it gluten-free, but on top of it, it has a lot less sodium than if you were to buy a convenience product, for example. I'll put a little bit of olive oil, just a touch, in my pan, and we're going to sweat our yellow onions first in there. There you go. You can hear the little sizzling in there. I have diced the onion in this particular case, but really it's not necessary if you just want to quarter them or julienne them or anything that's fast will work as well. In the meantime, though, I will start cutting our potatoes. So I have 2 yellow potatoes in this particular case. And once again, the way you cut them is not that important, as long as they're able to cook in the pan that you're using. So it's been about 3 to 4 minutes now, and the onions, as you can see, have gotten a tiny bit of color, but they are becoming really nice and tender. So what I'm going to do next is add our potatoes to it. Give it a little stir, and then using the same temperatures that I was using for the onion, I'm going to let them cook just a few minutes, 5 to 6 minutes, until they become to be a little bit soft as well. I'm using low sodium chicken stock to make this soup, just so we're sure that we're not adding some sodium that you didn't mean to be in there. So you can see the potatoes have started to soften a little bit. So I think now is a good time to add our chicken stock. Oh yeah, look at that, beautiful. Our chicken stock as well as our butternut squash. So what I did for this is simply peeled a butternut squash and then I diced it up. Here it goes. If you prefer, you can use IQF frozen. They tend to have a little bit less sweetness, but if you have to, you can add a little bit of brown sugar to it to kind of balance that sweetness. We're going to wait for about 45 minutes to an hour to let this beautiful soup simmer slowly. Okay, so now it's been about 50 minutes since the bubble started going, and you can see that this is exactly what we're looking for, an even cooking of all the ingredients. So what I'm going to do is grab a spoon or a knife or something and just make sure that our butternut squash are cooked through, which they are nice and soft. So what we want to do next is add our spices to it before we blend the soup. So we've got some cinnamon. We'll add that on there. We've got a little bit of nutmeg. Here we go. And then we've got some cloves as well. There you go. All right, so now I'm just going to give it a quick stir, such as this. And our next step is going to blend our soup together in a commercial blender before we focus on adding the creaminess to this delicious soup with our Mountain High original yogurt. So I'll grab the soup and I'll go to the blender and then I'll be right back. Here's what our beautiful butternut squash soup looks like after we just blended it up together. So you can see how nice and smooth it is, but we have to add, of course, our creaminess, our dairy note to it to make it the proper butternut squash soup. So instead of using heavy whipping cream or the traditional half and half that you would put throughout the cooking process, what we're going to do is fold in to our blended soup some of our original Mountain High yogurt. This will, of course, serve many purposes. It will add the flavor profile that you're looking for, but also it will not add way more fat than what you're looking for. So what we're going to do is we have about 6 cups of the blended soup here. We're going to add 2 cups of our yogurt to it. So here we go. We'll add that. And then all I'm doing is folding in the soup. An important thing to not do is to fold in yogurt when you're on high heat. It will probably separate. So what you want to do is make sure that you fold in your yogurt once the cooking process is over. All right, so now I've been stirring for a little bit here, and you can see that the yogurt lumps have gone away. So it's safe to say that we're ready to serve this soup. So the next step will be for me to simply pour it inside of a bowl and garnish it before we serve it. And then what I want to do is kind of give it a little bit of pop of color to the top. So what I'm going to do is add a little bit of our Mountain High Yoghurt over it. What I like to do is just drizzle it randomly so it kind of looks like a nice design when your patient receives this, such as this. There you go. What I do is I will drizzle a little bit of fresh chives on there as well. So after the simple steps that we've done, we end up with this delicious butternut squash soup that's gluten-free, lower in fat due to the fact that we used our Mountain High, and hopefully delicious. Let's give it a try. Fantastic. You've got to try this recipe.